Hello teacups, what's brewing? I hope you're doing well today. I'm hoping I've got the settings right on my camera because last time I tried to put this into a video, it had these weird black bars and I don't know why it's suddenly doing that, if it's something to do with an update on my phone and it's changed the, what's the word? Not resolution, there's another word for that, the aspect ratio. But I couldn't seem to change it back without just chopping the edges off, so I've got you slightly further away so I've got a bit more space to do that, but we'll see how this goes. But anyway, lovely to see you back. Let's have a little catch up with Chantal, shall we? I did want to talk about this day before yesterday, but things got very busy. I had to go find some fake flowers from somewhere and I was just, in the evening, my time got eaten up. I was quite tired. Anyway, that's teacher life. But the new house, we've got a few topics on the agenda today. The new place she's living. A lot of rage, basically, partly from the article that came out about Nada. Key point about Nada, but referencing her, that she's very angry about, and just general rage, the way she does. And about the fashion show she did, which was nice content. Like, we haven't seen the vlog yet. I'm looking forward to the vlog. If it's not too long, I might just do a straight react. But it's nice that she's doing things. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, but let's talk about the housing. Okay, so she admitted, and this is the thing that interested me, she admitted that it was sort of not exactly a friend, but she wasn't going through like a realtor. It was people who were renting out their house, that she'll be on the lease, but it seems to be a deal she's working out with the owners. A lot of speculation about who the owners are. I know Pulpy was saying something about Carly and Josh, and she has said, no, that's not the case. She's not going all the way to Windsor. There's been some talk about it maybe being the uncle, because I think the uncle, is it the uncle or the grandpa that goes down to Florida? I can't quite remember. So there's two possibilities of the way this could go, because those are the only two people we can really think of that might have the money behind them to have this kind of property. Or just somewhere nice that she could be describing. Not that the rest of her family doesn't have perfectly nice places, but in terms of just renting it to Foodie, and the idea of trusting Foodie with a place, I don't know, I'm of two minds. On one hand, it could be family, so they're willing to risk it because they know her but they're family, and on the other hand, God help the people who would rent to Foodie and don't know about her. But I'm getting ahead of myself now, but there's a lot of discussion about that as well. So let's just try and do this somewhat in order, because it's difficult to make sense of in some places, and part of that might just be she's lying her ass off, and part of it might just be because, oh God, we would never, you know? So either this is maybe not a lie in a technical sense, which is something she excels at. Foodie has said it's not family and it's not her uncle. It could be a friend of the family. I think some people were talking about, I won't say someone said, but some people were talking about a friend of the uncle's having a property that could be this. I don't know about that, but I feel like in order for Foodie to get this in the way she's describing, there would have to be some kind of connection for her to do it. So that's a possibility. And you would hope she wouldn't screw family over, but at the same time, in the moment, she hasn't treated the place she lives in now very well, and there's really no indication at all that she would do better in a new place. So if it's a friend of the family, so not technically lying where it's not a family member, I feel very bad for that friend. I do not think she should be trusted with other people's property, quite frankly. I don't think anything we've seen of her shows that she'd be willing to keep up with it, because apparently it's a very nice place. Apparently, we're going on her information. Secondly, it could be true that it's nothing to do with family. She claims they're friends. I have issue with this as a label, because we are aware of most of Foodie's friends, and we're also aware that she doesn't have very many. So the idea that suddenly, at the right time, in the right place, at the right moment, there would be a friend who happens to have an apparently $1 million property that Foodie could potentially buy into, that they're okay with Foodie having, because Foodie said they had looked her up and seen her YouTube. I'm sorry, nobody in their right mind who had seen Foodie's YouTube would rent to Foodie. They wouldn't. Which makes me think if it's not family or friend of family, potentially it's a scam, which is maybe mean of me because Foodie can clean up nicely and she can do the thing on occasion if you catch her right. See the fashion show. She went and she did it and I was a little surprised. I thought she was going to pull out, but I'm glad she didn't for the sake of the people running the fashion show. And it was really nice to see different content from her. But I have major concerns about this housing because frankly, if it seems too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. And for her to be handed on a platter a beautiful apartment at a price that she claims, because she thinks she's very savvy in a lot of ways that I don't really think she is. But you know, she could name a number she was comfortable with, which we're going to talk about the finances in a minute. It seems too good to be true to me. It raises a lot of warning signals in my brain where I'm like, wait, what? And then apparently the owners have cats that they're willing to leave with her. And I'm like, no, oh no. She barely takes care of the cat she has. And yes, I get that BBJ is old and she's survived with her for 20 years or however long BBJ has been alive. But she doesn't, on a day-to-day sense, take care of her cats very well. They're alive, but she doesn't. The environment in which she has them live is not conducive to living of either cats or humans, quite frankly. I'm not saying she doesn't care for her cats, but I'm saying she doesn't put them in a healthy environment, much like she doesn't put herself in a healthy environment. So not caring for them goes into an emotional and a physical sense, and I'm talking about the physical sense here. I'm not going to say she doesn't love her cats, I think she does. But the idea that anyone at any point would go and look at her channel and think, nah, she's fine. We'll give her this amazing property. We'll give her our cats to look after for a season. Like, I'm sorry, what? That does not add up. The math is not mathing. That does not add up. Which is why I think if it's family, you can kind of understand people taking the risk. But if it's not family, I don't know what scam is being run, but it seems like Foodie is going to be in trouble later. I don't know how, but I know these things exist. And I hope for her sake it's not that, but it doesn't seem like something that would just drop in your lap without there being an ulterior motive somewhere. I'm very much waiting for the other shoe to drop on this story. Speaking of the money though, because I said we were going to go back to it, and this goes back down to something she says a little bit later, but to try and keep it all themed here. She did mention in her live stream, go to my notes here. Oh, I'm so tired. Her most recent one. She was mentioning that she's short $1,000 a month. It was a very throwaway comment, but I laughed. I think she was laughing at like moving in a lodger or doing something like that. She was like, she mentioned she had $1,000 a month gap for, I guess, her budget in the future. So moving into this place is going to leave her with $1,000 a month gap. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? And how on earth, with the amount of money she earns, has she got $1,000 gap? Like, she earns more than enough money. This is not an income problem. I've been watching a lot of budgeting videos again, and I'm like, is it income or is it spending? It's spending. She shouldn't be in that position. And she wastes a lot of money, but she's not sticking to her budget at all. Even among the live streams this week, she said, oh, I've been eating out too much. I've blown my eating out budget. And a budget's always an idea to her. It's never something she actually has to stick to. But the more costs she makes compulsory in her life, her rent and things like that, the more chance she's got of just screwing herself over. And we know she's not great financially. And to be able to get into a place, and she seems kind of convinced she's going to buy this place in the future, and the numbers she's pulling out just don't make sense. Like, either her multiplications are wrong or her original number are wrong or whatever. She said, we guessed $2,500 here on the channel for her monthly rent because she had said $5,000 or whatever for the first and the last. And then when she was doing those calculations and she was like, no, it makes sense for me to buy it because they've said the rent that I pay can go towards the principal on the house. So if we're doing £3,000 a month over 12 months, that's 40 grand. And I was like, honey, go write those numbers down because you gotta rejig those. And someone corrected her as 36,000. And I was like, yeah, let's keep going. But so now she's using the number 3,000. I don't know if that's her actual rent or if because she doesn't math the math very well, she's just sort of rounding everything up. But that's not, I don't think it's a good idea for her to be increasing her rent, but it's not a big enough increase that it should cause her a shortfall every month. I don't know if maybe she's just saying, well, I spend as much as I earn now, and so if my rent is 1,000 more, which she's at like what, 1,750 here, so approximately 1,000 more, I guess. Then I'm gonna have 1,000 shortfall because the idea of adjusting her lifestyle for her needs just doesn't occur to her, and she wants to keep spending everything she's got because, you know, taxes have not been sorted out yet. Oh, I did want to talk about taxes actually. That wasn't on my list. Speaking of taxes, she gave some bullshit about how her bank has an arrangement with the tax. I don't believe it for a second. Like, as she was saying the story, she was confused. If I wanted to be kind, which I'm not inclined to do with the stories she tells because she tends to be a bad liar, but if I were inclined to try and figure out what she might be talking about, in the UK, this is the only thing I can really compare it to. I realise in some ways Canadian taxes are going to be very different. In some ways we might have a similarity. We can have what used to be known as a government gateway account, and now I think it's HMRC Online. And so for my YouTube, I have a unique tax number because I have to self-assess for my YouTube because it's earnings I do in the UK. I've talked a little bit about my taxes before, I think. And what they do is you submit your tax return online. It takes about an hour to fill in. And then they say, okay, you owe this much money for the last year, and we estimate this is how much money you're going to owe for the next year. So you do some money on account because they're trying to turn it so people don't just have to come up with the money at the end of the year. So my cutoff for the online filing, I have to pay all my taxes by the 31st of January 2023. And then on account, I make one payment before that deadline, and I make one payment in the middle of June. Yeah. So there's an option within that. Let's say I don't owe this in taxes, but for the sake of it, I owe £5,000 in taxes. Yeah. There's an option within it where you can choose to garnish it from your already existing wages if you also have employment and you have a regular national insurance. Not national insurance, Jesus, I'm not explaining this well. If you already have regular income tax taken out from your employment rather than your self-employment, you can choose to have those combined and have the money garnished the way your regular employment is taken. I hope that was clear. I'll try and cut it down to be a little more clear. If you see a weird cut, it's because I've tried to make this make sense. And you can also put money into your government account so that when the date is due, they can take it. So for example, I recently, because I want to take some money out of the next couple of paychecks to cover the rest of my taxes from last year, I put £1,000 in. So it says, you owe this much money, you have this much money in the account, and you need to put this much money in before the 31st of January. Yeah? So that's kind of the deal there. But you can also have direct debit set up by your bank to pay regularly. I believe you can do quarterly. I'm not sure if you can do monthly, but I believe you can do quarterly. I haven't really looked into it because I don't do direct debits. But there's options in that way. Now, we do know that Foodie doesn't pass information well. So when she's given information, because she's generally fairly tunneled visioned, she tends to make information mean what she wants it to mean, or just not take it in when she doesn't want to deal with it. Taxes and finances are something that I think does worry her deep down, and she doesn't want to deal with it. So information she gets given or she researches, if she looked online and was like, I want everybody to shut up, let me pretend I know how taxes work, this is what will happen, I can believe her reading that information and not processing it in the way it should be processed, and then coming out with, no, there's a deal with the bank. What I think it means is there's some kind of service in that way that the bank can set up that I don't believe for a second she has set up, because the amount of penalties she would have on that money. You can do like a payment plan, I'm sure, because when people get penalized, the government want their money, and they really, really want their money when they're penalizing you. So I'm guessing they understand if you didn't pay your taxes, you probably don't have the money, and there'd be some kind of payment plan. But if that had happened, if she had gone through that process, there's no way she would have been able to hide it from us, but I don't think she would have hidden it because she would have wanted to prove she'd done her taxes. So that's the whole thing, and I think it's all bullshit. It's the very long way around I'm saying that. And I think she's looked online to say, this is what can be done, and then she's bullshitting us into thinking she's done it, and showing that she doesn't really understand how it works. That's what I think. So we will see what goes on with the house. Even if she can buy it, and even if her rent goes towards the principal, because we have like rent to buy schemes in the UK, or we did at one point anyway, I've never done one. I'm assuming they still exist. Where you can do something similar, like it's a thing that exists. But I think the fact that she wants to move, and whoever these people are making it easier because she doesn't have to come up with certain things, and she doesn't have to go through the credit check as stringently as like a letting agent might make her do. She doesn't have as many options because Pete is now unemployed. They can't use his credit. She has a good income coming in, but it's her only benefit. She's got a terrible credit history. Like I said last time, she might be at the point where some of that stuff is dropping off her credit, which would be very useful to her. But really, the responsibility of securing this place is going to go to her. And she won't have that many options. She just won't have that many options. But I think she's allowing that to convince her, this is convenient, it's here, I like it, they gave me some tequila, it's all fine, like no red flags there at all. They're giving me everything I want, so let's do this. And it just, I don't know. I don't know what she's signed. I don't know what the contract says. I would hope she has something in writing if she's planning to buy it. But I think this is one of those impulsive, oh, this seems like a great idea, convincing her to do something she cannot afford to do. Because I don't care if your rent's going to that principal, the house is still unaffordable to her the way she lives. So let's say she is paying $3,000 a month. Say she pays 36 a year. Let's say she lives there for 3 years. So she's got just over 100 grand in it. But it's still only, what, a tenth of the price of the house. If she was saving it as a down payment, it wouldn't be, I mean, it wouldn't be awful, but it wouldn't be that much of a down payment. She still has the massive bill of the principal to pay. She can't afford $1 million house the way she lives. She can't. So whether she can put her rent towards it or not, that just prevents you needing to save for it. It's still a bad idea. So anyway, I know I've been sort of all over the place with this, but I've had a few days to think about it, and it just doesn't, I'm like, if it's on purpose and you know everything, why? If you're coming from the outside and maybe it's a scam, the only way it makes sense is if it's a scam to me. I hope it's not one, but I can't see somebody from outside being willing to risk their $1 million housing opportunity on Foodie without there being another angle. Because as the landlord, you're gonna have a lot of cost associated with her if she wrecks your house. And I don't think she's thought of the fact, she said very blasé, oh, well, they're the landlords, so they own the house, they can put any rules they want. Like, what rules are we talking? How reasonable is it? How's it gonna come and bite you in the ass later? We don't know. They could be perfectly lovely, honest people, but if they've seen her videos, there is no reason they can't rent this house to somebody else if they're legit. So I don't know. I've got a lot of questions about the situation. Another react we had, which I did start making notes on, so I've got more notes on this one than anything really, was the public figures don't owe you anything. She says she's going to reflect today, and basically the reflection is that she doesn't have a clue what the F she wants in life, and she's been wishing on chips, which seems a valid life choice. That's the plan. Wishing on chips and hoping they can come true, that she'd be famous and rich. And she's kind of got what she wished for, but be careful what you wish for, you know? And she's saying recently, particularly, because she's about to face a big change in her life, how she wants this change to go and where she wants it to be. And she's like, what if I put all this work into getting what I want and then I don't want it? And on one hand, I'm guessing kind of like, if you don't really know your goals, you're like, is it worth the struggle? Is a universal question that people might ask. But Jesus Christ, talk about making an excuse before you've started. Like, worry about getting it. Get it, and then see where you are. Because she's not about to sit down and question whether this plan is for her, not in a serious way. Because she doesn't have to go into being rich and famous. It's just all she's known. And she doesn't want to sit down and do the work to figure out what will actually make her happy in life, which is what she really needs to do. Because, hey, therapy. I would love her to sit down. For all she doesn't like to go and it makes her uncomfortable, she could use help from somebody to say, I don't understand what makes me happy. Because she says I'm 38, I should know by now. It's totally okay to be our age and say, I'm actually not sure where I'm going with this. I could do with talking it through with someone. That's okay, go do that. Because it is, in a wider sense, an issue. If you don't know where you're trying to go, you don't know how to get there. And she uses the fact that she's spinning her wheels because she doesn't know her destination as an excuse to not get started. And that's why she's constantly getting stuck, because she has no overreaching goal in mind, or at least not really a realistic one. She's got infamy rather than fame. And the more people are talking about her right now in connection with Nada, the angrier she's getting. She said she needs to go to the clinic today because she needs estrogen. And she's speaking as if people are arguing this and she's trying to justify why she needs it. And I'm like, no, dude, you had your ovaries out. You've meant to have been on this for years now. Go to the doctor. Why is she going to a clinic instead of a doctor? She actually talks about it and she's like, I don't have a family doctor anymore. There are huge waiting lists. I have no idea what it's like in Canada for that. Apparently, if a doctor had replaced her doctor and taken on the client list, she should have gotten a place on that, but it would have involved her reading her mail. So she says she never got it, which I'm not sure I believe, but she never received it in the sense that she either never looked or she lost it in her house, I would bet. So anyway, she's at the clinic. She is annoyed because the clinic is closed due to capacity, because God forbid she make an appointment. It's a regular medication that she should have been on this whole time. There is no reason she has to be going from clinic and pillar to post to get this regular medication of hers. She needs to be consistent, which is something we can say to the cows come home. It doesn't change the fact she's not going to be. Some woman named Mandy wrote an article, which Foodie is more aware of later, but at the time people are asking it and she's like, what, who, where, when, why? And she asks if it's ex-visas and starts a little rant about ex-visas who start reacting. References whatever the fuck is going on in the reactiverse right now with people dating, fucking, betraying other people. I'm not touching it with a barge pole. I give it a hard pass. People be cray. Ask somebody what to make for supper and someone says chicken parm. She's like, no, it has to be pre-payday meal. Honey, how much do you earn a month? You can't afford to make chicken parm the day before you get paid on how much you earn a month. And bear in mind, this whole family / friends / scam situation with the housing is a good idea because it makes it easier for her to move. That was what she told us. She said, they're helping me to make it easier for me to move. So some of the costs, at least, associated with moving, she's not going to have to take on or shouldn't have had to this month. And even if she did take those on, like, she earns enough money to be able to afford food. Maybe not the food she eats, maybe not all the takeout and the gummies and the weeds and all the things, which is the real problem. but it just struck me as, man, just, I know we say the same thing and we keep saying it, but the amount of money she makes versus the quality of life she has is insane. She makes too much money to have this much trouble with it. She talks again about reactors. She says, reacting me is a fast track to being listened to, which I actually think to an extent. I think there's a lot of reactors out there, not all of them become better known, but she's a popular topic, and because people spend a lot of time going, what the fuck, what does this person think? So it can get you more views, absolutely you can. But it says, you wait, I'll get myself together and you'll become the lolcow. I think messy is as messy does. If a messy person starts reacting, it's going to be a mess. If somebody who's more together starts reacting, they're probably not going to be. It's just the nature of the beast. So yeah, more talk about not knowing what she wants, and yeah, she's doing every substance she can get her hands on to try and avoid thinking about the kind of person she is or wants to be, because she finds all of that boring / a trap, but she's struggling so hard without it. And I'm just like, the pain of self-examination is worth it. It is really all this boils down to for me. She does say, she goes, I need a cook and a chef. And then she goes, I'm kidding, I'm not that much of a brat. She should get a cleaner. I've been saying this for fucking years now. But here's the thing. I haven't put up the retour of my room since I did it, but I'm getting some clips and stuff together for a little vlog on my other channel. But I have a cleaner. She started this week, because when I was in Saudi, things used to get very dusty, and there are certain jobs I don't like to do. So I get tired during the week because I'm working, and then I procrastinate a little. So at the weekend, instead of it being something I keep up with, I have to do a big clean. And there's certain things I hate doing. I hate vacuuming and mopping the floors. I just hate doing it. I can do it. I do it eventually, but I hate doing it. And there was a cleaner here who deals with a few houses that people recommended, and she will charge 10 Rial for 3 hours, and then she comes in and blitzes it. So she cleans all my bathroom, she cleans all my floors, she did my services. Like, I came in after work on Thursday and it was just done for the weekend, and it was amazing. Like, I'm so happy with it. She is really reasonably priced. I realize cleaners get expensive elsewhere in the world, but she is really reasonably priced, and I greatly appreciate and recommend her. Her and cleaners in general, I should say. I realize you can't call up my cleaner and be like, hey! Like I said, I realize that cleaners are expensive in other places. They are in the UK as well, but with the money she has, it's definitely a worthwhile thing for her. Because I don't have this cleaner coming every week. I have her coming every 2 weeks to do a big job of it, and then I can keep up with it for a couple of weeks. It's okay. So that works out perfectly for me. She could get a cleaner once a week just to stop it getting into the state it got into. And she could afford to do that. She's been mentioning, what she said was, we're going to have a housekeeper, at least I think we're going to. They've got the number of some reasonable people. She doesn't seem sure. And again, going back to that idea of when she talks about the taxes and some kind of arrangement with the bank, which the taxman can't really have unless they've included you in it. They can garnish stuff, but she doesn't have a wage to garnish. But it's that kind of thing where I think she's only processed half the information. And the fact that they were sitting there and it was after 11, so they had tequila anyway, or whatever they were drinking, that doesn't fill me with confidence in what's actually going on. So she doesn't seem to be entirely sure. They spoke a lot about the details, but she's not great at retaining details, and she doesn't seem entirely sure some of the things she's agreed to. So again, it will be interesting moving forward. She gets politely interrupted. Oh, wait, before we get to that, hang on, sorry. Speaking of the housekeeper, and then she's talking about the kitchen, and this is important because of the rage later, and she says, when I was with Nada, and I was excited to, when I started him doing all his cooking, I got excited and I gave him my kitchen stuff. That sentence is important for two reasons. One, acknowledgement that she got him started on YouTube, which is relevant to the argument when she's like, why are people focusing on this? And two, because she is an absolute literally raging bitch to her supporters later in this stream and in future streams, where she goes off at some beezers for mentioning Nada. And she's like, why do you come in here and talk about it? You bring him into this. And when they're like, you talk about him all the time, she's like defending herself saying, no, I never talk about him. You brought him up. And I'm like, dude, you talked about him right here. And she talks about him again in a later stream as well. And because she's not really registering all these tiny mentions of him, and he was part of her life for a very long time, I get that there are little mentions of him. But because she's not acknowledging it, she's just going off at people. But the other day when she was like, I don't understand why people don't feel appreciated. Hi guys, I love you so much. I want to make sure to mention each and every one of you. You mentioning each and every one of them is not the issue. You doing this is the issue. And it doesn't matter if you feel bad about it later. The fact is you're doing it, and there's only so much of that people will take. Because you're not just expecting people to take it, you're expecting people to pay for it. At one point, a guy interrupts politely, just knocks on a window and says, hey, really sorry, could you reposition your car? Because his other half is like has a bit of trouble getting in, and you know, I think she was parked a little bit over or on the line or whatever, and she's adamant she didn't, and then her story changed, and then she's like, maybe I was a little bit over, whatever. She did a little bit of a shoddy job in parking. It happens, it's not a big deal. The guy knocks on the window, he's polite about it, and he, I think for politeness sake, makes it sound a bit like, no, it's my wife that has a bit of an issue. Yes, she just needs a little bit extra space. Would you mind just making sure you're fully in your parking space? You know, like that kind of tone. It's not his exact words, he didn't say that, but very polite and trying to sort of, oh, no, I'm sure it's me, but thanks so much. And she defends him against her chat for a little while. And then the morphing of this story as we go on, where he had a pit bull in my face and he was so rude and he's an asshole. And over the next live or two, that's how the story develops, because she wants, at some point she's using it as distraction because she wants to stop talking about the other stuff. And so she rages and rants at him a little bit later, even though in the moment she's like, no, he wasn't rude at all. And it's always funny to watch, because when you hear the stories about how people act with Chantal, and when you hear her recount things that she swears happens, there's an interesting line between what's true and what's a deliberate lie, what's a technical lie, and then what she adamantly believes is true that isn't. Because she convinces herself and then it becomes real, because she's only ever taking in half of the thing and she's so emotional. And this was a really good example of the very last one, where she knows in the moment what happened, but her memory of it morphs it completely. And it's also useful to have him be this arsehole that she can rant about when she wants to get off another topic. Going back very briefly to the housing, one of the beezers said they're surprised they would rent her. Sorry, I forgot this when I was talking about it. They're surprised that they would rent to her, having seen her videos, which is something that really shocked me. And she says, well, they know I do YouTube. They have to know where the income comes from. And that's not really what she had said before. She had said before they watched my videos, and then the conversation she was apparently quoting from was, oh, we looked you up and we were a little bit concerned, but we think it's going to be fine. And I feel like all three of those are a little bit different. So I don't know actually how much of her videos they have watched, but I would be interested to know, because it all feeds into how deliberate is it on their part offering it to Foodie. Because if they've watched a lot of her videos, they know that she earns a decent amount of money. She's addicted to certain types of drug, which I'm calling her weed usage an addiction right now, because I feel she's reliant on it, even if she's not physically addicted. And obviously the other drug use that is speculated. And they know she's not great with money and is kind of gullible. So it's a treasure trove for a scammer, it really is. And the fact that, you know, they're sitting there drinking with her and they're talking about, hey, no, it's a really great investment, when she's quite easily convinced of things. I really feel like there's something else going on there, I really do. But then if they haven't really watched her videos, I don't know where that line lies, but it's going to be an interesting future thing. Especially when you consider she defends it by saying, my filler's not really that bad all the time. When I got really depressed, it did really get into the state. It doesn't actually matter what it's really like behind the scenes. I think it's really that bad behind the scenes, but it doesn't actually matter. Because if she's saying they've watched my videos, they haven't come to her apartment. She's saying they've watched my videos. So the only thing they know is what's being presented on screen, if that's true, which again raises those questions. One thing I was like, excuse you? She starts in on Pete at one point, saying she wants to change, and if he doesn't shape up, he can move out. I was like, excuse me, excuse you? What? Like, he is. She makes some points where she's not responsible for Pete's life, and he's a 40-year-old man, and all of this. And yeah, that's true. That's true. But also, that's the complete opposite of what she said in the past. I mean, beyond the point when she called him a ball and chain, of course. When she was like, no, me and Pete's to the death. I ruined Pete's credit. Like, he took on debt for me. I will always take care of him. And I'm like, pick a fucking lane, man. Because this back and forth, like, that was some bullshit, the way she was talking about Pete's right there. He hadn't done anything to deserve it. And like, has he sat there and said, I won't change with you, I will hold you back? I very much doubt he has. She's her own worst enemy in terms of change. She does defend suggesting to Pete he start a channel, because starting people's channels is a bit of a sensitive issue at the moment. I don't actually have a problem with her suggesting that. Like, from her perspective, I think him starting a channel was a sensible idea to her, because she makes a lot of money on her channel, and it's something he could do from in the house and still get some income. Now, you can look at the wider picture of balancing that with being in the house all the time. I think is contributing to his depression, his isolation in that regard, and just the state in which they live. When my apartment is a mess, I feel worse. I imagine that other people would go through something similar. If you live in a state, you feel a state. It's just the way it is. In my case anyway, not everyone experiences it the same way. I also think that the longer he was off work, the harder it is to go back to work or to find a new job after a gap in employment, and that's just a general truth. So there are definitely balancing things, but I can see, understand, and to an extent, those things notwithstanding, even agree with it as a short-term stopgap so he could have some income. But again, she's only really arguing it because she's feeling defensive about the idea of helping people start channels in general. And that leads us up to the victim shaming article. Most of this is just rage, you guys. It's just rage. She's really, really angry that people who are now writing articles about Nada are framing her to be the reason he's on YouTube. And it's absolutely the reason he's on YouTube. Now, is putting him on YouTube making her responsible for his actions? That's the argument. She's like, well, I'm not responsible. I'm not saying that she has caused what he has done. The argument is she platformed him, which she did. I'm sorry. You can argue future responsibility, but in terms of he would not be on YouTube. He might be doing something equally heinous through other means, but he would not be on YouTube if he had never met her. That is a simple fact of life. She was instrumental in him setting up his account, in sustaining that account, in supporting that account. Do you remember when she was trying to get out of his apartment? And so she literally, and this was a little bit after he'd started his channel, she literally had to press the button to start his live and say, okay, you're on, I'm gonna go. I remember that. So to say, well, it's just a click of the button, it doesn't matter how easy it is if he was incapable of doing it for himself, which he was, because you have had to do everything for his channel, or had to do it at that point when he started. Then it doesn't matter how easy it is if he couldn't do it. You are responsible for him being there. Are you responsible for all his actions after? No, you're not. But asking and corralling your audience into his audience and giving him a wider, I was going to say victim pool, and that felt a little bit wrong, but giving him the access to a huge amount of people and encouraging them to go to him, there is a culpability in that. You don't control his actions, but you were a part in placing him where he is now. Now, she goes back and forth on admitting this. She's like, so what? Why is it important? It's important for those reasons. It's important because there is a certain amount of reach and access he couldn't have achieved without you. Yeah? And she's taking it as nobody believes I'm a victim, and goes through all the same points, and is basically saying by writing that, you're invalidating her victimhood. And I'm not going to go over this argument again because we have heard it ad nauseum. But she's very angry about it still. Connected to this, she asks when at any time she enabled his behavior. And excuse me, madam, are you fucking serious? Whenever did you enable his behavior? When did you not? She has an idea of honesty that is bizarre to me, okay? She has a thing, and I'm sure we've gone through this before, where she doesn't see the difference between telling the truth initially and lying about it, then either getting caught or just getting lazy and not wanting to sustain the lie, and so the truth coming out. She admits to the truth when cornered. But she takes admitting to the truth later as the same as truth. And it's not. In one of those scenarios, you lie, and in the other one, you don't. And they are fundamentally different, and she doesn't understand the separation. So she just gets outraged, and that's the way it goes. She says, and again, tying into all the money, she should just go broke suing everybody on principle. And I'm like, honey, your moral high ground ain't that high. Be careful of the swamp, you know? And she's too broke to do it, which is, again, interesting. And what are you going to do? Having admitted that on camera, we all kind of knew, but having admitted that on camera, what are you expecting to happen now? She's too broke to sue anyone. She rants some more. Somebody, bless them, in her chat, somebody suggests developing some conflict resolution skills. I'm like, really? Oh. She says yelling is hers, which is one of the more honest things she has said recently. She does acknowledge she needs to stop ranting online and move on, but she keeps ranting. She circles back around to reactors, and they are the reactors that she's just admitted to being too broke to pursue, so I'm not sure what she's hoping to achieve. Let's Smoke doesn't have a lot in it. She's still angry. She's still angry. She says the hardest part about being with Nada was trying to make him look good. And that would be one of the things that people have a problem with when they say that you helped to platform him. When you were sitting there trying to make him look good, you were enabling him to access and convince other people that he was a good person. Now, her argument is, well, I always came back online and I told you. You're like, yeah, but you also did this thing first. She's never been a particularly credible person, and I absolutely believe that he is an awful example of humanity and shit went down. I believe that. But when she talks about how she's always been honest, that's not quite how that's gone. There was a very mixed message being done, and why, given the way she is, given that she goes back and forth so much, why does she think that telling you should have been inherently more believable than anything else she was telling you when she was giving us both corners of this? So we go on to I'm So Tired, which, unless she's online right now, is her most recent one. She's back from the fashion show. Guys, okay. I fucking love her wig in this. It is exactly the colour that I like to go with. She'd had it styled. It was cut nicely. I want it. Unironically, not making fun of her at all. She posted a picture on her community post of her in this houndstooth thing, and it was styled a little bit differently, and I didn't think I liked it as much then because I'm not sure about her as a redhead. I'm not sure about her as a redhead. It doesn't quite, I don't want to say doesn't suit her, because she did look very nice in the wig. When she came online in this live, I liked it better than in the picture. But it's not a bad look for her, but it doesn't feel like her when I see it. But the red wig itself, God, that was in my wheelhouse. I want it. I got nothing bad to say about it. It was lovely to see her doing the fashion show though. The fact, I thought she was gonna flake on it. I really did. I felt really bad for the designer, but it seems like she did it. I'm actually really looking forward to the vlog. I'm really looking forward to the vlog. If it's not too long, we might end up straight reacting. Did I say that at the beginning of this? I might have said that at the beginning of this. Sorry guys, I was going to talk about the fashion later and I got caught up with it at the beginning of the react. Apparently FFG turned up at the fashion show. I'm like, that's a little bit too real life for me. I wouldn't be okay with that, but I will say, in as much as Foodie is eminently triggerable, she seems to have handled it pretty well. Better than perhaps I would have if someone had shown up in my real life at a thing I was doing. Because I think there are lines, and I don't think that's where I would have drawn that particular line if it were me. But she's handled it pretty well, and it is what it is. It has happened. It has moved on. This was when she told us she was a grand short for the budget, but I've already talked about that. She said Pete's told FFG she had a wheelchair in the car, and she claims it's for her aunt, and she's corrupting her family. I think that was a lie she pulled out of her ass in the second of the moment because she got caught. I don't know why she shared it. I guess because she thought FFG would. Probably it's for her, is what I thought at the time, but I suppose it didn't matter. But then later she admits that she already had some of the wheelchair, so it was for her, and she wants to get off it as a habit, and she kind of wish she hadn't. She says reactors can cover her, but just don't snipe, because, you know, she's got that $1,000 a month to make up, remember? She said something like this at the beginning of another one where she was like, oh, if they all stop reacting, no one will cover me, or something to that end, where you can tell money is an issue. She hates all of us. She hates all of us, but even in her hatred, she understands the benefit. But because when she gets angry, she wants to sue all of us, because it's not fair, you guys. She forgets it sometimes, but she knows which side her bread is buttered on. She's always known it. Chat's glad she showed up. As I said, I am too. I would have felt terrible for that fashion designer if she hadn't. She saw the neighbour that she's now been bad-mouthing for a day, and she just waved, because she backs down in real life in general. She talks about bringing back the time warps, because, you know, now she's listening to her audience, bringing back the time warps. Don't play with my heart here, Foodie. You know I love them. Don't play with my love. This is when she started doing the math with her rent, where she's like, $3,000 a month, that's $40,000 a year. And I'm like, again, that's not how maths. And again, the $1 million house still doesn't make sense to me. She starts telling a story about her racist landlord, old from when she lived with BB. And I started skipping through at this point. I don't think I missed anything massively important, but there we go. I haven't quite finished that live, if I'm completely honest, because a week is a long time in the Foodieverse, but I will try and finish it off, and we'll talk about anything that comes up. But if not, if she does release that vlog at any point while I'm off work, I will maybe try and do a react to that tomorrow if it comes out the way she says it will. It does depend on her doing what she says she does, so maybe it will never come out. Who knows? If it does, I'll take a look at it. Thank you so much. I realise we went through quite a lot of stuff, but I'm finding the moving arc interesting. I'm waiting to get the pictures of the inside and stuff, and it's always a fun thing. She's been finding it very difficult. She's like, I've got so much to do, I've got to do all this, I've got to go back, I've got to plan this, and she's panicking, and I'm like, seriously, pack up your shit and go. It's not that hard. I realise that I live out suitcases, so mine's a little bit different, but she's moving into a furnished house. She is a lot closer to my situation than she was before when she was bringing all her stuff. Literally, pack your stuff, take it, clean the other house, and you can pay people to do that last step. It's not as stressful. Moving in general can be a stressful thing, but it's not as stressful as she's making it. If she gets started, she's going to be less stressed out about it. So there we are. I'm going to leave you there. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.